In this video, we are going to create the UI for our shop. Basically, the player is going to walk into our shop and it's going to enable this UI game object. So to get started, inside of our sprites folder, you'll find a UI folder. And within that, we have a heads-up display, which we'll get into later. We have our main menu, and then we have our merchant. And our merchant is our shopkeeper. So we have box 1, box 2, a box front, button, selection, and our shopkeeper. We're going to use these to create our shop. As a reference, this is what our shop system is going to look like. We're going to have our shopkeeper logo icon on the left, followed by a flame sword, a boots of flight, and a key to the castle. We're going to have a buy item button, and then we're going to have a bar on the right here that says how many gems our player has, and then the cost of each item over here. So let's go ahead and create this. The first thing that we need to do is we need to create a new UI canvas. So let's right click in our hierarchy and let's go to UI. Let's create a canvas. This canvas is going to hold all of the UI elements for our game, including the HUD, the main menu, and the merchant. Once we have the canvas created, what we're going to do is we're going to just adjust some settings on this just to make sure everything scales properly. You want to make sure that we change the canvas scaler from constant pixel size to scale with screen size so that it works properly on our mobile devices. Scale with screen size. Once you've done that, go ahead and change this to 1920 by a 1080 resolution. And you can choose match width or height. And just keep the match at 0 here. This should be good enough. Once we've done that, you want to make sure that screen space is set to overlay. Okay, now that we have our canvas, we can create a panel within this to organize our UI. So we'll have a panel for our main menu, a panel for our merchant, and a panel for our HUD. So go to UI, and we're going to create a panel. And let's go ahead and call this shop. We'll call this our shop underscore panel. Once you have that, we can go ahead and get rid of this tint by just removing the image component. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do is add our profile image. So let's go ahead and set up that by adding the UI. We're going to go to Shop Panel UI and we're going to add an image. It's going to be centered as a child. And let's go ahead and call this, let's call this Merchant UI or Merchant Image, Merchant underscore image. And the source image is going to be the shopkeeper. All right, so we have the merchant there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add this box 2. This box 2 is actually a frame for our profile image or for our merchant image here. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another image where you can duplicate the merchant image by selecting it and hitting Control D, Command D if you're on a Mac. And we can go ahead and call this merchant underscore image and we'll say background. Once you've done that, go ahead and assign the box underscore 02 to the source. All right, and we're going to just adjust the layering. So to do that, you're going to drag the merchant image and put it in front of the merchant image BG. Okay, and we can go ahead and focus in on this. So here, if we go ahead and hide our profile, you can see here that we have a box behind it, and then we have a front frame, and that's going to be box front. So this has like a white outlining frame. So let's go ahead and create another one. We're going to duplicate our merchant image. And from there, we'll call this merchant image front. And drag the box front to that image. And that's how it should look. We have a white border around our profile. Okay, so now that we have our merchant there, we can go ahead and create everything else we need. And if you want to zoom in on your shop panel, you can select it and hit the F key in the scene view to focus in on it. And if you focus in on an individual element, it will take you closer. Alrighty. So one thing I want to do here is I want to make sure that we actually scale this to the size we want. So what I would like to do is let's go ahead and set this. The anchor point here is going to be centered on the screen. So on the shop panel and stuff like that, for all of these elements, you want to make sure that you anchor it to the center. And then within it, each child object should be centered as well. So select all of them and make sure their anchor points say middle center, which they already do. From here, we can go ahead and stretch these images a bit. So let's select all. And let's set it to about 240 for the width. And we can do like 330 for the height. All right, that's about what we're looking for. So about this size. So go ahead and stretch it out by 240 by 330 for our profile, and that's going to give us the result we want. And we can go ahead and position it where we want. So about right here, you're going to have it in the center of your screen, and we'll have it pop up, and then our options will be there. So the next thing we want to add is, let's go ahead and add the box 1. This is where our items are going to be placed. So we're going to create a new image. So right click your shop panel, go to UI image, and let's call this item background, item BG. And we'll go ahead and add box 1 to that. Once we have box 1 in there, we can then stretch it out to fit the profile image. And there we go. That's going to be our shop UI. So when we trigger that, it's going to pop up, and then we have this UI system. Let's go ahead and add our by item, our buttons. So we have by item, and then we have the amount of gold. So we're going to create another image here. So right click your shop, go to UI image, and let's call this the buy item button. So buy item button. And actually, instead of an image component, let's make this a button. So remove that, right click your shop, go to UI, let's create a button. Because it's going to be a button that's going to trigger the ability to buy the item. So here we have a button, let's call this buy item button. And let's bring that where it needs to be. So about right here. What we can do now is the image for it, let's set it to the button image. And then we can control the width of this. Let's go and make this about 380 on the width and 80 on the height. 90 on the height. All right, and we can then position it right below. So we're going to have our buy item. And then let's duplicate this, and this is going to be just an image of how many coins we actually have, or gems. So let's go ahead and just move it over here. Now this one here is just going to be an image. So we want to remove the button component. So right click, remove component. So here we have player gem count, we'll say. All right, so player gem count, we have our buy item button. That's going to close the shop or just ignore it. And last but not least, what do we want to add here? We then need to add individual items. So the Flame of Sword, the Boots of Flight, the Key to the Castle, and the prices. All right, so let's go ahead and modify the fonts real quickly for here. So inside the buy item button, there's a text component. That's the text of the button. This is going to be buy item. We can go ahead and set the color to be white. And we'll increase the font. All right, so 26 looks about right. And go ahead and center that text. All right, so we have our buy item there. And if we want, we can maybe make it a little bit bigger, 30. And then do the exact same thing for player gem count. This is going to be, for instance, how many gems they have. So for this one, we want this to appear all the way at the right. So we're going to say, for instance, 54G, and we'll append the G onto however many. So this will be populated dynamically when the shop opens. So we put 54G in there, and then we can go to normal. Let's go ahead and change the font to white. Set it to about 30. And then we want it to be all the way to the right. So for this, we're going to change the alignment to the right side. And then we're going to give it some padding. So from the right, and that's going to allow us to move it. So give it about a padding of, I'd say 11, I'd say 12. A padding of 12 is good. And then that's going to allow us to like adjust this and it will scale out properly. All right. So we have 54G there. And then now last but not least, we just have to add the items that you can actually buy. So items for sale. So let's create a new button. Go to UI. It's going to be button. Because you're going to select these items as the item that you'd like to purchase. And we're going to like highlight them basically with this selection bar. All right, so let's create the first one. So this is here. This is going to be flame sword button. All right, so we have our flame sword button, and that is going to go on top here. We can go ahead and make this we can make it about here, and we'll put the price to the right of it. Then we're going to create a boots of flight. So duplicate this. Let's call it boots of flight. Boots of flight. All right, this is boots of flight button. All right, we'll go ahead and place that underneath. And last but not least, we have our key to the castle. So let's duplicate it again. And we're going to have here key to castle. All right, key to castle button. Okay, and let's drag that down as well. So let's go ahead and just scale these down a bit to be proportionate. And one of the things that we can actually do is we can actually group these so that it will fit perfectly within this box. So one thing that we can do here is if we look on the background here, this is our item background, let's add what's called a canvas group. So here we can add a canvas group and set block raycast to false so that we can still click the buttons. And let's drag our flame sword button, our boots of flight button, and our key to the castle button within the item background. And then once we've done that, we can add a vertical layout group. And a vertical layout group is going to allow us to stack these guys and control them. So basically we can add like spacing. You see how it controls all three of them. So now it's going to fit perfectly within this box and be proportionate. All right. And let's go ahead and just adjust the width. Let's see, child control size. And there we go. Now they fit perfectly within the box. And if we want to, we can child force width. We can ignore that. And that should allow us to adjust the width of these guys without causing any issues. So keys, flight, and flame. Let's take all three of these and adjust their width. So about right here. So basically we just use this canvas group to allow us to use this vertical layout group. And it basically allows us to have the boxes within the background all neatly organized and proportionate, which is the goal. From there, all we have to do now is add the prices to everything. So here we have our flame sword and our items. From here, we can then add new text items. So on the item BG as well, we're going to create just text items for this. So UI text. And we actually don't want to do it within the item BG because it's going to mess up our canvas group. So we're going to add just UI text down here. All right, and we'll call this flame sword price. All right, we'll put that here. Set it to about 30. Change the color to white. Okay. Not seeing it. Here we go. All right, and we'll go ahead and say this is going to be 200 Gs. And we can position it where we want. All right, and let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger, maybe about 40 for the font. Yeah, that looks good. So we have our flame sword price, and then we have our boots of flight price. And the price of this is going to be 400. All right, and these are just added like power-ups or anything like that you wanted to add. We've provided you some sprites that you can include for this. You can adjust the jump height if they have boots of flight, things of that nature. And then last but not least, we have the key, and the key to the castle is what we're actually going to be programming. That's the win condition. So key to castle price is going to be 100. So there's going to be a lot of logic handling for this shop. Key to castle is going to be 400 Gs, and the key to castle is actually going to be 100 G. All right. So we have our prices here. So 200, 400, and 100 G. And last but not least, let's go ahead and fix up our buttons here. So inside of our item background, we have our buttons. What we can do here is we're going to remove the image components. All right, they're just going to be invisible buttons with text. So remove the image and remove the image. They still have their buttons. And you'll see here that on the buttons, it's giving us this warning. Go ahead and select all of the buttons and change the color tint to none. What we're going to do now is just open up the text document, the text for each one, and let's call this Flame Sword. We'll set the font style to normal, font size, make it about 30, and set the color to white. All right, and we can adjust the alignment to the left, and we can add padding from the left. So we can increase that to get it to where we want. So about maybe 50 from the left. So it's going to look like this. And we can even make it bigger, maybe 50 even. And there we go, yeah, 50 for the font, looks good. So we have our flame sword text. Then what you're going to do is you're going to do the same thing for your boots of flight text. Let's change that to boots of flight. The font size is going to be 50. Alignment is from the left. From the left is 50 pixels. And change the font to white. Or if you wanted to get it more like the image, we can fade it out, but we'll have a white for now. All right, so Flame Sword is 200, Boots of Flight is 400, followed by Key to the Castle. So let's create Key to Castle. 50 for font size from the left, 50 pixels from the left, and set the color to white. All right, and that is our shop system. So we're going to be able to select one of these items, and then we will be able to select the buy item, and it will deduct the coins that we have and purchase that item and use game logic to achieve that. I'll see you guys in the next video.